Maya Angelou was born Margaret Johnson in St. Louis, Missouri on April 4th, 1928. She had grown up in St. Louis and Stamps, Arkansas. She was an author, poet, historian, songwriter, playwright, dancer, stage and screen producer, director, performer, singer, and civil rights activist. She had become a poet after a series of occupations as a young adult, including as a cast member of a European tour of Porgy and Bess. Many of the songs that she had written in the 1950s later found their way to her later poetry collections. She had given up performing for a writing career. Maya Angelou was active in the civil rights movement and served as the Northern coordinator for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1959. Later, she became close and worked along with Malcolm X. Maya Angelou, who died at the age of 86, had made an effect on American culture that changed her flying poetry and inspiring memoirs. She was the nation's wise woman, a poet to presidents, and an unapologetic conscience who became such an inspiration that grief over her loss had poured from political leaders, celebrities, and ordinary people in generous ways. There are a couple of poems that Maya Angelou had written. One of the poems that she has written was called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings is a 1969 autobiography about the early years of American writer and poet Maya Angelou. In the case of Caged Bird, Maya Angelou transforms from a victim of racism into a self-centered, educated young woman that is capable of responding to prejudice. In this particular autobiography, she uses the themes such as identity, rape, racism, and literacy. Maya Angelou had also written some memoirs. She had named her fifth published memoir, All of God's Children Need Traveling Shoes. Her memoir entitled All of God's Children Need Traveling Shoes is a declaration for the great American poet, activist, dancer, and teacher who spent her life in motion, pushing past barriers of straw and stone as she claimed her rightful place on the world's grand stages. When she died on May 28, 2014, she had died a great American woman that was honored and loved across races and borders. There are many reasons why Maya Angelou has the right to be remembered by the people that were fans of her writing. One of the reasons why she should be remembered by her fans is because she is a very famous American author and poet of all time. Just like there is a Martin Luther King statue in Washington, D.C., there should be a statue of Maya Angelou so that her legacy can live on. Her statue should be built in St. Louis, Missouri, since that is where she was born and raised. Many of Maya Angelou's fans were very inspired by the poems that she had written in the past. Throughout the different types of poetry that she has written during her lifetime, there were a couple of different themes. Many of her poems were about love, relationships, or overcoming hardships. as expressed in poems of hers such as Still I Rise, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and Million Man March poem. There are so many people that begin to feel very inspired once they read a book, poem, or memoir that she has written. There are a few books that are written by and about Maya Angelou, such as A Song Flung Up to Heaven, The Collected Autobiographies, and My Journey with Maya. In the book entitled My Journey with Maya by Tavis Smiley and David Ritz, there is a male college student that is a huge fan of Maya Angelou. The college boy works in Los Angeles for a mayor named Mayor Bradley. In the book, it states, several years passed. I was working in Los Angeles when Mayor Bradley asked me to bring a personal letter of welcome to Dr. Maya Angelou, who was appearing before his philanthropic organization. Given my experience with Toni Morrison, you can understand why I was extremely cautious in my approach, to the point of being intimidated. Since Maya Angelou was involved in the civil rights movement, she has inspired other people to fight for change. Many U.S. citizens are starting to realize that no matter how old or young you are, you can always fight for what's right in society. Because of Maya Angelou, the college student in this